Hello, welcome to the Correspondence Extra for Pep262. Hello, Lockie.
Hello, Chaz. Hello, Peppers. Thanks for corresponding.
Yes, and look, there's going to be more extra than correspondence in this Correspondence Extra because I'm trying to get as much immigration stuff in as I can, but having prepared a lot of it now, there's a lot, Lockie. So what I'm going to try and do, let's keep this to an hour and a half. I'll do half hour of correspondence and then an hour of extra. And by the end of the hour, I promise you, you'll be pleading for me to stop. And then we can save the rest for another time.
Okay. My favorite thing about this prediction, this time prediction right now, is that you, dear Pepper, can see exactly how accurate Chaz's prediction was, but we don't know that yet.
We have no idea. We're going to find out how wrong I was in about 4 hours' time.
All right. Okay. Kick us off.
Right, yeah. Okay, so I've got a lot of correspondence left over here because we've been pretty dodgy on the correspondence for a couple of weeks now, 2 or 3 weeks. So this is a smattering of 261 and 262. First of all, Nick's been holding no truck for my suggestion back in 261 that the Virginia Supreme Court may not be partisan. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that they're not partisan. What I'm saying is the guy who wrote the majority opinion is going to lose his job because he wrote that opinion. Fact. So he's either very impressive or very, very partisan. So partisan he doesn't care. That's all I'm saying. And he could be very impressive because at least the opinion is logical. You know, it's not obviously hackish. So I don't know. You can be cynical if you want. I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm certainly not ruling out that he's partisan. Nick says, of course it's partisan. Can you honestly, in your heart of hearts, say that you believe they would have applied this level of technical reasoning if the Republicans were in the same situation? It's another case of the double standards of competitive authoritarianism. SCOTUS is obviously next level for this, where the autocrat side is afforded every indulgence and flexibility of interpretation, while the opposition is held to the most scrupulous moral standards and every action is examined with a fine-tooth comb. I know exactly what you're talking about, Nick. It might be that. Maybe. Also, you're massively overestimating how important keeping your job is to people in the conservative ecosystem. It's similarly related to the authoritarianism point. Within an autocratic regime, positions are largely fungible as long as you serve the will of the autocrat. Getting booted from their state Supreme Court seat means nothing when they'll just be rewarded with another likely higher paying job on some board or think tank or media show operated by a sympathetic Trump ally. Maybe Trump will even nominate them for promotion to the federal bench. The sky is the limit if you please the autocrat. As an expansion of this point, it applies to political representatives more generally. It's one of the things undermining democracy, in my view. The fear of losing one's seat has obviously been massively reduced by gerrymandering. But also, the fact that even if you do somehow manage to piss off your voters enough to get booted, there's always a job waiting in the right-wing grift industrial complex. Obviously, this applies to some extent to Democrats as well, but it's less because there's simply less money involved in pushing left-wing politics. So there isn't the same infrastructure as for Republicans. Look, Nick, I think you're right to a certain extent. Certainly, the wingnut welfare circuit, as they like to call it online, that's big. And you're right. It's bigger on the right than it is on the left. I mean, the left have a few, like they've got their own media outlets. Like certainly there are people in the union movement and the abortion movement, the pro-choice movement, and there's boards, the relevant boards that certainly take ex-politicians and ex-left-wing nuts, but it's much bigger on the right. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, Nick, there are a lot of ex-Republicans to accommodate these days, and every week it seems there's a lot more ex-Republicans to accommodate. People getting booted from here, there, and the other, getting primaried, whatever. So I don't know. Look, bottom line, we just can't know. We're both mind reading here, Nick, but I thought your point was well made at least. And I agree that the wingnut welfare circuit definitely diminishes the effectiveness of democratic accountability. And there's nothing you can do about it, but it's just there.
Oh, nice.
Kash Patel Correspondence from Shiny Happy People. Kash Patel and his gifts of alcohol, unlike Australia. Oh, what they're referring to is, I was pissing a little bit over the story about him giving away free booze, and going, it's just a present.
Kash Patel brand bourbon,
yes,
particularly.
Indeed. So Kash Patel and his gifts of alcohol. Unlike Australia, it's not acceptable to bring alcohol into the US workplace. The US has a different relationship to alcohol than Australia has. First of all, are we allowed to just bring booze into work?
I was going to say, I feel like we're shaming Australia a bit there. Unlike Australia.
I don't know. Maybe we're more casual than America. We usually are.
I don't know what you've got in your pep mug.
The second thing is, if you're not allowed to bring booze to work, don't tell Pete Hegseth that, because they'll make him decidedly unhappy. Look, I don't know. I've got no idea. Maybe some of our American peppers can tell us if you're allowed to bring booze to work. I'm not sure you're allowed to in Australia either. I mean, you wouldn't get sacked for it unless you were drinking. If you just had a branded bottle just sitting there.
I mean, it's no secret that Australia's casual consumption of alcohol is bigger than what it is in the US.
Probably, yeah. But
I don't think that equates necessarily to slamming down stubbies at your desk.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure I'm not sure Happy People's going that far, but yes, I agree. Walter says, the thing Chaz is missing is the absolute supernova of culture shock within the FBI. Even in 2026, the FBI has standards for inebriation that apply to your personal time. My father was an FBI special agent in Indianapolis and LA in the 60s and 70s. You'd think the personnel standards would have loosened a little bit in the intervening 50 years, but they haven't. Not really. The FBI is a notoriously conservative organization. Well, it was anyway. And look, that's something that I think a lot of people lose sight of, because we're just so used to hearing Trump and his people whinging about the FBI. Mm-hmm. The FBI is a conservative organization. They treat it like it's full of left-wing radicals, but it's just ridiculous. The FBI, until Trump came along, was considered to be the most conservative of organizations.
And just to clarify, do you mean small c conservative or big C?
Well, I mean small c. But small c often will go with big C. At least it used to.
Sure, okay.
It might be switching around these days. These are new times, Walter. I don't know what's going on in the FBI now. It does make you wonder, though, how long it's going to take to get the old standards back, if it's even possible. That's just probably not possible. Mm-hmm. But this is an interesting one. We've got Pepper here with real-life experience. So I want to share this one.
Whoa.
Kai Mentakium. I completely agree. The story about Kash forcing trashy gifts on people is just pointless dramatics. But I will empathise with finding it demoralising and interpreting the gifts as threatening in some manner. I was employed by the way, what this is all about was I was quite derisive about employees going, I'm so scared and I'm so demoralised by these gifts. Just throw it out if you don't want it. Anyway. He says, I was employed at a company for a while, received a few bottles of wine and gift cards down the line a few times, and they always smelled of informal bribery. When I was later in a management role and received a gift valued at about an hour's wages directly from the head of the company, I declined it on principle. Just a polite no thank you, more or less. The very next day, he swung by the site again and grilled me on if I was looking for another job after the better part of a year with no such questions asked. As I said before, I don't think the example with Kash is exposing any genuine wrongdoing, but the wrong person behaving in a certain way with gifts can very easily feel crooked and mercenary and just generally unprofessional. It just invites a pervading sense of why are they doing this? What do they want? What are they giving to other people? And what are they doing in exchange?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Fair.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Seems very reasonable. I withdraw my general air of derision towards that employee. Play on, sir. Look, let's face it. I guess I just want to get my hands on some Kash merch. That's what this is about. Those little dollar signs on the S's, they look fantastic. I want that. I wonder if he makes T-shirts. Of course he makes T-shirts.
Oh, yeah, he definitely does.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that because he'll be sacked soon, so I have to buy it now. In fact, I know he makes merch or T-shirts because there was a news story just this week, which I'm not going to cover. This is off the top of my head. Hackers just took over his official merch store. And yes, the FBI director has his own official merch store. That says all you need to know about the Trump administration. They hacked into his site and they passed on malware to people logging in.
Whoa.
Yes. Which is kind of funny because the real Kash Patel, I believe, also passes on viruses to people who get too close to him. Just joking, supervisor. I'm not making a defamatory imputation. Yeah, I don't want to cut that one out. I like that. Stats correspondence. Kim I says, I wonder why Trump and his cohorts are letting any government figures that are negative to his performance come out at all. You talked about the producer price index and how it's collated by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. Surely that's a government department. Why can't Trump write an executive order, declare an emergency or something to stop the figures being made public? As you would know, Kim I, that is my most morbid fear about this administration, that they're going to come for the stats, which I take very personally. And I think they've already been messing with it a bit. But so far, I think you can still kind of trust most of them. I think we're going to be saved, though, as far as the producer price index goes, by the fact that there is absolutely no way Trump has heard of the producer price index, and he never will. So that one, I think, is safe as houses. But I am seriously worried about the inflation numbers, the headline inflation numbers. They're the ones he really cares about. He's going to start messing with them soon, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So I'm worried about them. But and they'd be so easy to fiddle with. So, yes, no, Kim I think you're on the right track, but I think we're okay with the producer price index. Boat murders correspondence. Nick doesn't like that I said the Caribbean boat murders were, in my view, the worst thing this administration has done. He writes, the boat murders are awful and lawless. I agree. But the worst? In terms of the magnitude of human death and suffering, I'd say the destruction of US aid is unbeatable. The death toll is conservatively estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands already, trending towards the tens of millions by the end of the decade. Look, that's obviously a very reasonable position you take there, Nick, in terms of death count. But I'd say a few things. I mean, by the way, let me just be very clear. The death count of US aid defunding is surely going to be a higher number than what happens in the Caribbean.
Well, until an executive order gets signed to make sure that number disappears. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, so I think logically what Nick's saying is correct. There's no doubt. But number one, taking it to the decade, I think is a mistake because the very first thing the Democrats are going to do is restore that funding. And I think they are going to be in charge in 2028. In fact, not a lot. Some of that funding has already been restored by Republican Congress because some of it was just so self-evidently just ridiculous.
Sure.
That some has come back. So the original death counts projected are probably overestimates at this point in time already, and they're going to, as time goes on, I think, be less still. But I'm not pissing on those numbers. They're still high numbers. Also, the number of deaths, they're unavoidably rubbery because you're dealing with who dies specifically because of funding when they're in a poor area and who's the last person to kill that person who has already been starved and already been living in a high poverty area and already can't get a job and already there's 12 other things going wrong in their lives before USAID withdraws their funding. Who do you blame? Once again, I'm not saying that we're not blaming USAID. I'm just saying the exact
You're saying
number.
The numbers are difficult
to be sure about. Exactly. But also the main thing for me, and I'm not changing my mind, I think your position's very reasonable, Nick. But the main thing for me is the difference between withdrawing a benefit and actively murdering people. If you are someone who stops paying for a charity, that makes you a dick. Even and if it kills people, that's bad. But that's, I think, a lot of people, certainly I would say, that's quantifiably different to someone going around slashing throats.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say slashing throats is worse.
I just feel like we're entering trolley problem territory.
This is exactly the trolley problem. Yes, I know you can't see my script in front of me, but literally the next thing I say is this is the funding version of the trolley problem.
Oh, okay.
It actually is.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what the trolley problem is, it's I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's something along the lines of you have the option of just letting a train just go through and just kill 10 people, or actively flicking the switch to make it travel a different path to kill one person.
Mm-hmm.
So do you actively take the choice to, on your own hand, kill a person, or allow 10 people to be killed?
Mm-hmm.
They're the numbers, aren't they? I think that's the usual situation.
Yeah, one of them's more people and one of them's less people.
Yeah.
You can mess with it in all sorts of messed up ways.
But anyway, it is kind of like a trolley problem. So I guess Nick would flick the switch and let the one person and actively kill the one person.
I don't think that's not what Nick is saying. I think Nick is saying that more people are dying and that is bad.
Yes.
And I think the general point is that, this is a theoretically bigger number of casualties.
Yeah.
Not casualties, sorry.
Deaths.
Murders.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that's an interesting area there. You can make up your own mind whose side you're on there. Zay is chastising me for constantly pointing out that the drugs sold in Venezuela mostly go to Europe.
Ah, okay.
Because every time I talk about the drug boats, I always go, and Venezuela don't sell fentanyl, and it goes to Europe.
You do say that.
Yeah. And Zay says, look, the routes taken to each destination have minimal crossover. Aside from the fact that they originate from the same region, if the US Navy is surveilling ocean smuggling routes, they're going to know which routes are part of the American side of the operation and which are part of the European side. Same region, different sea lanes. This is not in dispute, Zay says. So Zay's suggesting that they would know if they're killing people who are going to Europe or going to America. And so we should assume they're killing people going to America if we're being generous. Being
fair?
Yeah, that's right. And look, I think that's a fair point. I think that is a fair point. I mean, Zay then goes on to say, look, we don't know for a fact, I understand why you're raising it, but you just raise it so confidently every time.
Okay.
Yeah, insinuating that, hey, all these people are probably going to Europe. He doesn't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's at least a point worth raising.
Yeah, sure.
So thank you, Zay. Kim I says, what's the point of Trump killing suspected narco-terrorists? Is it just at-home propaganda? Is it something he thought would make him look good? Look, I think he believes in the death penalty for drug dealers generally. Mm-hmm. He's believed in that for 40 years.
Yep.
And this is the only death penalty he's allowed to execute.
You'll note that there was an asterisk when Chaz just said the word allowed.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Theoretically speaking. Practically speaking, not theoretically speaking. Theoretically, he's definitely not allowed to do it, but practically he's allowed to do it because no one will stop him. So yes, this is the only death penalty he can execute because Biden pardoned most of the people who are already on on death row. So Trump's getting his jollies for all the death penalties he wants to execute through here. I also think Stephen Miller, people hate when I say Steve Miller because it imputes the Steve Miller band. The Stephen Miller is trying to do what he can to discourage Latin Americans from traveling anywhere near America. And so I think this is part of the propaganda. So I think Stephen Miller's been pushing this as well. I'm also sure that Trump likes the opportunity to appear tough on crime wherever he can. And most importantly, have Democrats resist so he can say they're not tough on crime. Mm-hmm. So I think that all that stuff's all wrapped up together.
Throw a little bit of Pete Hegseth in there as well.
Yeah. Look, I mean, Pete Hegseth likes the opportunity to seem lethal and tough. He likes the word lethal.
Maximum lethality.
He loves maximum lethality. And he's never been too shy about war crimes, old Pete Hegseth. So you just throw that all in the same delightful cocktail. Gold Coast Correspondence.
Pete sure does.
He does. He'll throw them in any cocktail. Final attempt says this about the Gold Coast. I've heard it said, if you want to make any profession sound tacky, just add Gold Coast in front of it. For example, doctor sounds quite respectable, but Gold Coast doctor, somewhat less so. I love that, which is why I read it out. It reminds me of one of many, many, many great Dimitri Martin bits. Have you ever heard of Dimitri Martin?
Of course I heard of Dimitri Martin.
I don't know. He's from
that's
25 years ago.
So are you.
Yeah, that's true. Throw in front of your face. Dimitri, isn't?
I didn't mean that. Yeah, no, of course I know.
Dimitri Martin's a great stand-up comedian. And the one of the things I love about him is he comes up with all these great ideas and he just throws them away because he's got so many ideas. This is a classic example. If this was some other comedian, this bit would go for 5 minutes. With Dimitri Martin, it goes for 20 seconds. I'll play you the bit I'm talking about. It's not about Gold Coast doctors, but it's a very similar kind of joke about ladies. Have a listen.
I've learned that it's very easy to sound creepy. All you have to do is add the word ladies to the ends of things that you say. It can be anything like, thank you so much for having me on the benefit tonight, ladies. Like, this is the most harmless thing. Help, I've fallen into a well and I can't get out, I'm trapped. Ladies? It's like a jacuzzi down here, come on, all right.
I just love that he could have gone so much further with that. But no, he made the joke. He knows his audience is intelligent enough that they can enjoy it and savor it, and he just moves on. Yeah. Whereas some hack would have just gone on and on and on with they're like,
what's the deal with...
I'm not so much saying that, but they would come up with more extreme examples.
Yes.
They would have come up with examples of like I am donating donating $500 billion to rid the world of cancer. Ladies. Whatever, like to take more and more innocent sounding examples and then put ladies at the end of it. But he didn't. It's a great bit. I agree with you about the Gold Coast thing. It's very funny. I also, this is also from Final Attempt, I learnt the hard way when I lived there that even if you top up meters on the Gold Coast, or at least on some streets and surfers, it doesn't necessarily work. You have to literally move your car, as in you only get an hour or whatever the limit is in a park space, even if you keep adding coins. Tell that to the ladies in the bikinis and the guys. The guys with the pecs. Ross says, as someone who supports both the Gold Coast Suns in the AFL and the Phoenix Suns in the NBA, I take umbrage with Dr. Dave's comments at the top of the pod.
Uh-oh.
Yes, one of those teams might be the oldest NBA franchise, never win a championship, and the other is the worst AFL team of all time. But if the alternative is supporting the West Tigers, I know which option I'm picking any day of the week.
Whoa. Okay.
Shots fired.
That's how you get yourself kicked out of one of Dave's classes.
I love it, Ross, but it wasn't game to read out in front of Dave. So we can just enjoy it here. Dan asks, is after the midterms correspondence, it's more likely that the Republicans are going to suffer a huge loss at the upcoming midterms, but I question whether this will actually affect Trump's style of governance, especially when it comes to foreign policy. The boffins over at The Rest is Politics, which is a much less popular political podcast, have commented that Trump's deranged actions and welding of executive power will likely worsen, particularly if the Republicans lose the ability to legislate, giving him only one tool to affect change, executive presidential power. You've commented on this on the podcast generally, but I wonder if you guys would agree that we could expect more foreign interventions, conflicts, wars, such as Venezuela, Iran, Cuba, after a heavy loss in the midterms. I'm not sure there are many more countries for Trump to invade, Dan. I mean, he's gone through the classics, assuming he does Cuba before the midterms, which he will. I don't know, Greenland, is that coming? Geez, I hope not. Also, the Democrats are going to defund him instantly if they control the House. Mm-hmm. Especially if they also control the Senate. If he starts invading Canada, there will be no money for him. So so it's not going to be easy for him to do that kind of stuff in the next 2 years. In fact, it won't be easy for him to do anything. I would not at all be surprised if they just don't pass a budget for the next 2 years.
Wow.
Like, we'll see. We'll see what they do. But
cool.
Trump's going to want the standoff. You know he's going to want the standoff. And the Democrats, there's no way they're going to back down. There's no way after this last few years that they're going to be backing down. So,
I don't know. They always find a way.
We'll see. We'll see, Lockie. I strongly suspect if anyone backs down, it's going to be Trump. And he's not going to want to, but we'll see. The point is, it's not going to be easy for him to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'd say he's going to turn more to executive action rather than to invading countries. I would say that, except for he's basically already been solely doing executive action for the first 2 years, apart from the big, beautiful bill. I'm expecting a lot of him trying to fund things without Congress because of what I just said about the budgets. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there'll be a lot of executive orders. A lot of executive orders. So I'd say it's probably going to be more of the same, Dan. Maybe a little bit worse. Gerrymandering, correspondence from Rudolph. I think I'd push back on the assumption that Democrats or any party, when faced with the opposition gerrymandering, have to do the same in return. Oh, this is interesting. Isn't this, in a way, a race to the bottom? Isn't this the kind of crap that makes everyday voters from both sides continue to lose faith in their vote having any relevance and give up? Doesn't it also increase tribalism, one of the biggest problems in the US? You both say Democrats used to be the ones who would gerrymander the most, and then that changed to Republicans today. Doesn't that show there are alternative avenues? Why make yourself as bad as the other side? It can backfire badly. Why join in? I know this is in a way a real politic versus moral argument and real outcome short-termism versus a long-term moral stance. But if I was a Democrat voter, I'd be jaded by these moves rather than celebrating. This doesn't get us closer to representation from the people. Rudolph, I feel like I'm arguing with myself in a time machine. If you got me 18 months ago, I would have said exactly the same thing. All your points, I think, are correct. They're all right. You are correct. It is demoralizing. It is anti-democratic. It is getting us further away from representation of the people. It is just going to make things worse. Mm-hmm. The problem is, I've discussed this a little before, but let me be very explicit about this. I've changed my mind, and I've come to the view that you need to fight fire with fire on this stuff. Because, and not all the time, I definitely don't think you should do that all the time. Mm-hmm. But I think when you are faced with the choice of either reflect what they are doing to you, I mean reflect it. I don't mean anticipate it and try and escalate it. I mean just do back to them exactly what they're doing to you. If you have a choice of that or dying, I think you have to pick that. And this is the problem that liberal societies have all the time. This is a classic problem. That liberalism and tolerance has a weakness towards intolerance. Mm-hmm. Because then they tolerate the intolerant, and then as soon as the intolerant get into power, they ban the tolerant. Mm-hmm. Right? This has happened heaps of times before, and I think that that as much as possible you need to cling to your ideals, because you immediately let them win if you become like them. I totally agree with that. I'm not blind to this. But if you are facing certain death to your ideology or to whatever you're trying to represent, then I don't think you have any other choice. And like what we have here, to take this example here, and yeah, so before I do that, just to be very clear, I'm not talking about just, if they're being nasty, you got to be nasty. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, if someone is going to change the rules so that you can no longer exist, mm-hmm. you need to stop them being in a position to change the rules. Mm-hmm. You just need to. And if there's literally no way you can do that other than to do what they are already doing anyway, then I just think you just practically have to do it.
Sure.
It's and you go, but you're making it worse. You're setting precedents which other people are going to follow. Yes, you are, but they are already setting the precedent. The precedent is already set by them. Mm-hmm. You're ignoring their precedent and setting and making it harder for you to stop them than you otherwise would. You're basically just putting yourself at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. Then you're handicapping yourself. You're tying one arm behind your back. So in this case here, literally, if the Republicans just go nuts with gerrymandering and the Democrats just have independent commissions, that's handing 25 seats to Republicans. You can't, like, that means Democrats will be in power once every 2 decades. Like, you can't hand those kinds of handicaps over. So what I would say is that, now here's where the rubber hits the road. What I would say is, if you're an idealist, what you need to do here is you need to get into power through doing what they're already doing, the gerrymandering.
Sure.
And then as soon as you're in power, you need to pass a law to ban the practice. And I happily would get rid of the filibuster because I don't see that as any kind of democratic legitimacy anyway. And then if you do win the election and you have the presidency and you have both houses, you can pass a law banning gerrymandering.
Sure.
Well, I'm not prepared to go all the way to I draw a contrast between this and stacking the Supreme Court, which I'm still not on board with. And people would say, well, why doesn't the same logic apply for stacking the Supreme Court? I'd say at this point in time, and I know Nick will disagree with me, I know others will probably disagree with me too. I don't think that the Supreme Court is so far gone at this point in time that you need to do that. They've had some rulings that I think are appalling, but I'm not convinced that it's just an eternity with this court getting worse and worse. For a start, I think they are much better than the House is, and the Republican Senate would be, and Trump's presidency is. I think the Supreme Court, even at their worst, is much better than that.
Sure.
But also, I see no reason why the Democrats couldn't change the makeup over the next few years. And I'm happy to. The next two to die or to retire are both Republican-appointed judges. Maybe the next three. So this could change any time. And also, on top of that, I'm more than happy to reform the Supreme Court. I've got lots of suggestions. I'm just not happy to ruin the Supreme Court, which is what stacking would do.
Sure.
If you stack the Supreme Court, you might as well just end the Supreme Court. It'll have no legitimacy. It'll become a joke. And all the Supreme Court has is legitimacy. If you take away its legitimacy, people can just ignore it. They have no army. They can't enforce their rulings. So if people just go, well, that's a joke, they'll just start ignoring it. That's the end of the Supreme Court. So I don't think America should end the Supreme Court right now. So that's why I see a difference. But anyway, look, my point is, Rudolph, I totally understand where you're coming from, but I think at some point in time, you're just like I'm not comparing this administration to the Nazis, but this is the classic scenario. What you're describing is the classic Nazi type scenario, like how, like in the 1940s and World War II, what kind of rules are you prepared to break to beat the Nazis? Are you prepared to bomb Hiroshima to beat Japan? Are you like how far are you prepared to go? And I think there's a fair argument. If you're a free society and a liberal society, you should go bloody far to stop the real life fascists and dictators from winning. And we're getting in that realm when we're talking about gerrymandering, in my view. So but this is one for us all to consider, I guess.
Sure.
Oh God, no, it's 30 minutes. I haven't got the 262. My God. Okay, a couple of quick ones. Man, we're going to go over time. I'm going to skip a couple here. Taiwan. Uncle Phil says Taiwan's 120 miles from China, not 59.
Of course.
Trump doubles everything. So halving things he doesn't like is a new but logical extension. Seattle is 6,000 miles from Taiwan, not 9,500. Sure, I'm nitpicking, but it's always fun observing how Trump plucks crap from midair instead of actually bothering to find out. It really is fun.
That's
Uncle
funny.
Phil. That's why I read it out.
Great work. Why on earth did I take one of or any of his numbers for granted?
I don't know. We've learned from our mistakes, Lockie. Frank's from Taiwan. He makes a few points, unrelated points. I know nobody was saying Trump's argument is logic, but some random geography. The main island of Taiwan is closer to Japan than China. South Korea is 0 miles from North Korea. Japan is a ferry ride from Russia. where do we go from here if we're like you're saying, if we're only defending things that we're close to rather than far away from? He also says some outlets discuss the human catastrophe the war against Taiwan would bring, but from a US perspective, a massive loss will be the loss of the most functional liberal democracy in Asia, which peacefully moved from brutal authoritarian rule to a liberal nirvana that regularly peacefully transfers power between parties in fair elections, compared to, say, Japan and Singapore, which are de facto one-party states, and Korea 1 year on from a coup. First and one of the only countries in Asia with same-sex marriage, universal healthcare, advanced economies, massive political engagement, highly educated, and genuinely free. Taiwan is literally the country America told the world to become for 50 years. Maybe the only one that's gone from a true totalitarianism to liberal democracy so successfully and so fully. That's a really good point. And one that never gets made. Good on you. Good on you, Frank. I would read more, Frank, but I've got the clock going. Frank wrote a lot. Dumocrats correspondence. I was talking about how much this is Trump's new favorite thing, calling the Democrats the Democrats. Carl has a great get. I can't leave this out. Democrats was mentioned in The Simpsons in an episode aired in 1994. Even better, it was mentioned in the context of a brain-dead talkback guy. Have a listen.
So, my friends, let's just junk those Dumocrats and their bleeding heart smell fair program.
Dad, I had to listen to this jerk all morning. Can we listen to something else?
There is always a Simpsons episode. Of course, everything Trump likes is from 30 to 40 years ago. That makes perfect sense. And my God, I don't know if you've been following this, Lockie. He really loves that Democrats thing. He's doing it all the time now.
I saw a few tweets,
Yeah. Oh, not just tweets. And press conferences. He's just... I don't think he's said the word Democrats in the last 2 weeks. It's just Democrats. And even his Memorial Day message they just put out on Memorial Day, surprisingly enough, I was Happy Memorial Day to all, including the Democrats, who disrespect our military and all of the tremendous success that it has had over the last year. Huh? Sorry? What success is that? God bless those that have made the ultimate sacrifice. I love you all.
I love you all.
Yeah, I don't think he does. President Donald J. Trump. Yeah. Anyway, even Democrats there. He loves it.
Even Trump thinks The Simpsons was better in the 90s.
A lot of contention about me calling the slush fund, the $10 billion Trump suing himself, suing the IRS case, the worst Trump lawsuit of all time.
The $1.776 billion fund.
Yeah,
sure.
but the whole lawsuit.
Oh, okay,
leading up to it. And I said that was the worst one of all time. A lot of dissension because people remembered the Kamala interview 60 Minutes edit lawsuit with the ABC, which I did previously describe as the worst lawsuit of all time.
Yes.
Chrissy Cat says, Chaz, an honourable mention to Trump's 60 Minutes Kamala interview edit lawsuit. Trump claimed $10 billion for this heinous act and settled for 16 or 24 million, depending on the source. Perhaps you need a top 10 Trump's trashy trials or similar. Perhaps I do. Look, you might find it's hard to believe, but I actually keep track of this shit, and because I'm like that. And I was actually thinking to myself, is this worse than the 60 Minutes lawsuit or not? When I was writing that before last week, and I thought, no, it is worse.
It is.
It is worse. It superseded that.
Yeah.
That's now the second worst lawsuit of all time, and this is the worst lawsuit of all time. And I can't wait to see what he's going to invent in the next 2 years.
Well, it's going to be hard to beat settling with himself.
It will be.
And then creating a slush fund.
It will be, but I've got confidence. I really do. But anyway, thank you, Chrissy Cat, for remembering that as well.
Wasn't it actually 20 billion, not 10 billion?
It started off at 10 billion. It became 20 billion, which was part of the comedy about that lawsuit. They just had no idea. But yeah.
I remember that it was a reasonable sum.
It was a very reasonable sum. And then also on the slush fund, Kim I has written about the standing issue with suing the slush fund. Would it be possible to do when a Democrat gets knocked back from gaining relief via the fund? See, then they've got skin in the game then. You see, they've actually lost something. That's good thinking, Kimo. Blanche says it's for everyone, but the assumption is it will only be Trump's people who win compo. So when a Democrat's suing for something the same as others loses, will that give them standing to sue? It would. I think that is a great idea, Kim. That is definitely standing. And by the way, we'll find out about standing fast because there are so many lawsuits about this slush fund. They're trying everything, right? But I think that is an excellent idea and it would work. But by the time they go through that process to be able to prove that they were rejected and others were approved, you got to wait some time. You have to wait for others to be approved and you have to wait for you to be definitely rejected because they're not going to send you a letter saying you're rejected. They'll just make you wait. So after like a year and a half, then you can go, okay, they rejected me. But that's a year or a year and a half before you start the process. And then there's another year for the court case to work its way through to the Supreme Court. So by the time they actually went through the process, all the money would be spent and Trump wouldn't even be president anymore. So that's the problem. But you're right, Kimay, from a legal point of view, that would definitely get standing. But from a practical point of view, that's not much help. And so much of what Trump does is designed to change the facts on the ground before the law can catch up, which is infuriating as someone who cares about the law. It's a real problem. I mean, it's the weakness of the law, sadly. It just takes time. That's the strength of the law as well. It forces them to consider things and to take that time, but that can be exploited. Two more quickies. Nuclear dust corresponds from Dreadlord. I was whinging about Trump always calling things nuclear dust when it's not dust. Dreadlord says, funnily enough, Trump probably deserves to be fair, for describing highly enriched uranium as nuclear dust. HEU is primarily stored in three forms: as a solid metal, as uranium hexafluoride crystals, which when packed into steel cylinders has the consistency of packed salt, and finally, as uranium oxide powder. Whilst most of Iran's HEU is stored in the intermediary UF6 state, that's the uranium hexafluoride crystals, the US stores up to 40% of its HEU as an oxide powder because unlike the solid metal form, it doesn't oxidize in air or corrode with moisture. So he was completely wrong.
Wow.
Thank you, Dreadlord.
Excellent, to be fair.
I love being corrected on that kind of stuff.
That's great.
Finally, Runcorn says, hey, Chaz, what's up with the Magnus Carlsen-style masked Trump drawing? Well, I believe Runcorn is referring to, for those watching, for those listening, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. Is this? There we go. This here. This picture here, for those watching, has been hanging behind me for probably the whole time. And Runcorn was asking, what's that? This here is a picture that was drawn by my eldest daughter, who is now 16.
Really?
When she was 6.
Oh,
That's how long Trump's been around.
That's great.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah. Yeah, it was when she was little.
Peppers, have a look.
It's nice.
That's quite sweet.
I don't say anything about my family, as you know. I'm not going to tell you her name, but because I like to protect them. Not that I'm protecting them from you, but just from the internet.
Yeah.
But that's what that is, in case you're wondering. So there you go. I'm very that's me being a doting dad.
Aww.
On one of those rare occasions.
That's really cute. I didn't know that.
Anyway, there's enough correspondence, I reckon. Let's get into immigration. Let's get into it.
And the ICE chronicles begin.
It does. Okay, so pollings continue to deteriorate on immigration. For example, Washington Post, the approval of Trump's immigration performance is 40% now, 59% disapproval. Approval of the situation at the US-Mexico border, 45%. Compared to 54% disapproval. So that's quite remarkable in itself. I mean, you can see how Trump being generally on the nose has affected both numbers, but the general negative vibes on immigration have even poisoned the success on the border vibes. And there's no doubt that if you care about low numbers of immigrants on the border, there are none. It's worked. That's the only unambiguous positive, if that's a concern of yours. From the Trump administration, where there's no to be fairs necessary. You just go, well, he did it. He promised it and he did it. I mean, I don't like how he did it, but he did it. And so, but still, 45% approval to 54% disapproval.
Yeah, wow.
Mark Wayne Mullen is now in charge of the DHS, and his stated aim is to not be in the national news every night, which so far, look, he's pretty much succeeded. He has taken a lot of the heat out of the issue. He does have his moments. He recently rather stupidly suggested this way of dealing with sanctuary cities, which are cities that don't cooperate with all the federal government's immigration requests.
Some of these cities have international airports. If they're a sanctuary city, should they really be processing customs into their city? I mean, seriously, if they're a sanctuary city and they're receiving international flights, and we're asking them to partner with us at the airport, but once they walk out of the airport, they're not going to enforce immigration policy, maybe we need to have a really hard look at that, because we need to focus on cities that want to work with us.
So you're saying that big cities that are sanctuary cities that have a big airport, they might lose their customs?
Well, I'm saying we're going to have to start prioritizing things at some point. Right now, remember, the Democrats are wanting to defund Customs and Border Patrol. Well, who processes those individuals when they walk off the plane? So I'm going to have to be forced to make hard decisions. Who's willing to work with us and partner with us? Once again.
Now that sounds like a brain fart, but he said it in February, and then he said it in March, and then he said it in April.
Oh.
And then he said it last week as well. So he's serious.
Hmm.
And it's really dumb. Look, he's not going to do it before the World Cup's over, like, obviously. but I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do this after the World Cup. And it's such a bad idea. I can't believe someone hasn't told him yet that that's a bad idea. Because if you move customs officers from major airports and move them to minor airports, those minor airports don't suddenly have more runways. They don't suddenly have more gates. They don't suddenly have more flight control facilities. They can't accommodate more flights. They just don't have the infrastructure. They're not going to increase their capacity. You'll just reduce the capacity of the major airports in America. All the major airports are in sanctuary cities. And you'll just reduce their capacity without increasing the capacity anywhere else. Also, rerouting international flights would reroute every connecting flight as well.
Whoa, yeah, okay.
So it's not just the extra traffic that they've got to deal with those other airports from the international flights, but also from the connecting flights. So what this would do is destroy the entire national air traffic system immediately, overnight. It would grind to a halt, and it would create chaos everywhere, not just in sanctuary cities, everywhere. In fact, it would create more chaos probably outside the sanctuary cities than it would in the sanctuary cities. It is such a bad idea. And that would get him on the news. So we'll see if he follows through on that one.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Does that mean it's an empty threat?
Well, I just don't think he keeps on saying it, which makes me think
Which makes it a threat that he's going to continue. He's happy to continue making.
It makes me
to get them to comply.
It makes me think that he's serious about it.
He's seriously threatening them to do what he wants.
No, he's serious about actually doing it, going through with it. Because he can't just keep on making the same warning over and over and over again and never follow through.
Cut to the president. Yes, you absolutely can. Yeah. That's their game. Yeah. Do what I want.
I don't know. Even Trump does he does follow through sometimes. Like even Taco Trump, he has attacked Iran a number of times. Even though he keeps on saying he's going to do more, but he has done something.
I just think that if it's such a clearly disastrous idea, there's a chance it's a threat to get these sanctuary cities to comply. Because if he couldn't possibly follow through with it, they're going to think that, but they're also not going to want to fuck around and find out.
We'll all find out in about July, maybe August. Actually, he'll wait till after summer. No one will be that stupid to do that in the middle of summer. So if he's going to do it, September. That's when it's coming. But doing it 2 months before the election, now that would be a gamble. Anyway, other than that, Mullen's been very low key. Other than that notable exception. He's basically letting Tom Homan run immigration in a hands-on sense. Remember Tom Homan is like the old school kind of immigration guy. Remember the guy who's got marbles in his mouth? He just can't understand a word he says? That guy. And Homan isn't into ostentatious publicity stunts. He's not into sucking up to Twitter. He doesn't need any of that. He doesn't need to go to war. He just wants deportations in as little fuss as possible. So arrests have gone down slightly under Tom Homan. They've gone down from 36,000 in January to 30,000 in March, which is not even close to Steve Miller's demands of 3,000 a day. The people in detention have fallen from 70,000 to 60,000. The training for new ICE officers, remember we talked about that last year?
the 47 days.
They've been reverted to the original length of 4.5 months.
Okay.
So that's more than double.
4.7 months.
Maybe.
Still got it.
Maybe still got the 47 significance. So they have. I mean, look, I don't want to suggest they're going back to normal. They haven't gone back to normal, but they've taken a step back from where they were. The deportations are still coming. Don't you worry about that. They are at a slightly reduced rate, but they're still coming. Now, I told you last time about how the stands of immigration judges have fallen through the floor.
Yes.
The last time in the ICE Chronicles. They're trying to push people through the system as fast as possible. They've now completed more than 1 million cases since Trump's second inauguration, which has reduced the pending caseload by more than 447,000 cases. So guess how many cases are left in the queue right now?
9 million.
You got the right idea. 3.5 million. They are working through them, though, slowly. The main limitation, though, is when you're pushing people through a system, you need someone to store them. You need more detention. And this administration insists on keeping them locked in detention. They insist on it, even though the law explicitly says they're not supposed to be kept in detention if they're judged to be not a threat or a flight risk. That's what the law says, right?
The law.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm so scared. I'm from ICE. Oh, no, not the law.
Sadly, that is an accurate impression of ICE at the moment. And as much as I want to emphasize this policy is illegal, what they are counting on is that because of, remember last year, the CASA case in the Supreme Court said no national injunctions from district court judges.
Yes.
They're counting on these people each individual having to go through the court system to vindicate them being released. They just automatically put them in detention, and if you want to go to court, go to court. Some people don't. Most people don't. But you know how many people have?
3 million.
Not quite. That would be a lot of people. We've had 12,000 cases followed by Politico in the last year. The federal government won 1,200 of them and lost 10,400 of those cases. So they lost about 90% of the cases. Wow. That's a lot of cases to be following, though. They're just basically just clogging up the courts with these cases. And look, it's most of the Trump-appointed judges that find in their favour. But even the majority of the Trump-appointed judges don't find in their favour. I'm talking about the ICE, that is. Yeah. And certainly the more old school the judge, the less likely they are to find in their favour because it's patently illegal. But they still just keep on storing people in detention who shouldn't be there. Now, this is going to go to the Supreme Court. This is not going to keep on going forever. But in the meantime, they need more detention space if they're going to keep people in detention.
Gee.
And Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem were right up on that before she got sacked. First of all, they had two ways of doing this. One was these boutique prisons like Alligator Alcatraz, which you might recall.
I've got Alligator Alcatraz merch.
There you go. So you know all about it.
And
got
it from the Kash Patel website.
And these kind of boutique prisons, these new boutique prisons with cute alliteration, they're designed to be horrible. They're intentionally designed to be horrible. Like Alligator Alcatraz is in a swamp. There are mozzies everywhere. It's horrible. They even in Alligator Alcatraz had a punishment device called the box, where inmates were kept in a small cage-like structure and held in stress positions with hands and feet tightly shackled for hours at a time.
What the hell?
In direct sunlight with no access to food or water. Sound like torture, doesn't it? It's Just a little bit.
I'm sure that it's some legally distinct synonym, but yes, it does sound like torture.
I'm not sure they've even bothered to justify it. They don't need to justify it because Alcatraz is closing down, so they didn't have time to go to court.
Wow.
It's and not because they're worried about torturing people. It's just because it's too expensive. It cost $600 million in its first 2 weeks, and it's cost $1 million a day ever since. And the feds were supposed to pay for it. But of course, this is the Trump administration. They don't pay for anything. So they've been stiffing Florida on the costs. And Ron DeSantis just said, well, screw you. I'm not paying for this.
Wow.
So he's just closing it down. Because, that's the thing about Ron DeSantis, which is, like, Ron DeSantis is, like, he's full-on culture warrior. But at the same time, he hasn't quite checked in his brain yet. he's still got a bit of brain there, you know, and so every now and then he just goes, "What? No, I'm not going to do that." and just every now and then, and this is one of those times. So anyway, so they've pulled the plug on it. It's going to be completely closed in the next week, I think.
See you later. Come on,
Alcatraz. Anyway, so that's sorry, I just ruined everything. That's a boutique type prison, but there's a whole different kind of prison that Noah and Miller were pushing hard for numbers. These are the mega detention centers. All right, so the administration is hoping to double their detention capacity to 160,000 people, with a bunch of new mega detention centers that hold 10,000 people each. Woo!
That's huge.
It is. The problem is none of the communities involved want them. We'll come back to that. That's a real problem. Okay. But anyway, the bigger problem we'll focus on right now is they can't even run the current detention centers, let alone ones that are 7 times as big as the current detention centers. The biggest one that exists right now is called Camp East Montana. This is opened 8 months ago. And it's been closed down as well, but it's going to be reopened. It was closed down because it was a disaster. I'll tell you about that in a second, but let me just tell you a bit more about Camp East Montana. Washington Post has covered a lot of Camp East Montana. According to ICE's own inspectors, and let me tell you, ICE's inspectors, they're not very interested. That centre racked up over 60 violations in 50 days.
Wow.
That's current ICE violations. And it was the venue of 3 deaths in that period, just over 50 days.
Wow.
Including a murder of one of the detainees by one of the guards.
What?
The other 2 deaths, I'll come back to the murder. The other 2 deaths were a suicide and someone who died from health complications. Now, also the Associated Press reports that the staff were apparently overheard by the prisoners taking bets over which detainee would be next to die by suicide. So they really care a lot about what's going on, the guards. Back to that murder. It's a fellow named Lunas Campos. He was originally put down as a suicide, but the El Paso Medical Examiner's Office ruled his death a homicide by asphyxiation. And then multiple detainees told all the news outlets that they saw the guards choking Campos to death after he refused to stop asking for his medication.
Wow.
That's what he did that was wrong. He kept on asking for his medication.
And then did that 1 minute of footage disappear from the video file?
It's funny you say that. There are a lot of court cases at the moment involving these detention centres where that happens. These private detention centres keep on having accidents with their video footage. Often.
I was just trying to make a Jeff Epstein reference.
No, it's real. And in fact, it's even dodgier than that because I haven't got this prepared. This is just off the top of my head. But I've seen court cases where they have stills from the video. And when they're asked for the video, and they're saying, oh, look, the still's back up our side. And they go, where's the video? And they go, oh, sorry, we lost the video. Oh, it's deleted accidentally. Sorry. So they took the time to take stills that distort the footage to suit them and then delete the footage anyway. And no one's been held in contempt for this shit. It's happened a lot. So yeah, no, your cynicism wasn't cynical enough, Lockie. Work on that. Do better. But, anyway, the good news for them is they did stop that Campos from asking for his medication by killing him. So that was good news for ICE. The only reason that things, I do get a bit dark sometimes, don't I? The only reason that things came to a head in Camp East Montana was because 14 inmates tested positive for measles. So when they had a measles outbreak, the government was going, oh God, oh no. And so they had to shut the place down then to fumigate it. And it became obvious they had a problem. So then they started to unwillingly investigate. And the media came in and they couldn't hide it anymore because the inmates were talking. Turned out, Camp East Montana didn't even allow their detainees to have access to lawyers.
Wow.
For a larger portion of the time it was open.
Checks out.
Yeah. Or a means of filing complaints. And boy, were there complaints. Officers were accused of body slamming a teenager and beating him for switching off an overhead light in the housing unit at nighttime.
Teenager?
Yeah, a teenager. But you know what? I understand why you're focusing on teenager. I'm not even doing that.
Yeah, we're not even...
I'm just focusing on
the light, of course.
On body slamming someone because they're trying to turn off a light at night.
Wow.
The teen said that the officers grabbed my testicles and firmly crushed them. Let's focus on that now. Right, while another put their fingers deep into my ears.
The hell?
Which has led to some trouble hearing in one of those ears ever since for that teenager. So there's some other things we can focus on. Even after handcuffing the teen, the agents then beat him as well. After losing, I was still going on that same teenager. He's had a bad run of it. After losing consciousness in the medical tent, the teenager was taken to a hospital in an ambulance. Although ICE standards mandate that the medical care be provided to detainees at no cost, the teenager was billed by the hospital for the emergency visit as well. But there's more. Not about teenager. That teenager's had his run. Another detainee requested prescription medications, including for high blood pressure.
Okay.
And so the guard started beating him on his ribs, abdomen, and the back of his head. He recalls guards started stomping on me until I lost consciousness. He was held in solitary confinement for 5 days. This is all for asking for his prescription medication.
I don't believe they're trained medical professionals.
I don't believe so either. He then suffered 2 more rounds of severe beatings and hospital visits for sustained injuries after he didn't learn his lesson and kept on requesting his medications. Other detainees were also denied access to medications. This seems to be a theme. And 911 is regularly called to treat medical emergencies such as seizures, chest, and heart problems. We'll come back to that in a second. Attempted suicides have become quite common, hence the guards betting on who's going to be the next person to try to
I never thought I would advocate for people to just use Polymarket instead. That's sick.
It's you make a fine point. The Polymarket could revolutionise Camp East Montana. As for health complaints in Camp East Montana, has been that measles outbreak. There was also a COVID outbreak. There's also a tuberculosis outbreak. This is all in 50 days, right?
What the hell?
And remember, 82% of the inmates, according to ICE, have no criminal history whatsoever in Camp East Montana. These are not the worst of the worst, people. These are just randos who, remember, the government insists on imprisoning when they're applying for asylum and having a case heard and all the rest of it, even though legally they're not allowed to. I emphasise it's only been temporarily closed down. It is getting an upgrade, and then they're going to try again. Now, that's just one centre, Camp East Montana. I can keep on going, and I will.
This is. I think we're only like 20 minutes into the Ice Chronicles so
yes,
far.
That's right. I told you.
Oh dear,
it's pretty dark.
That's cooked.
Central Arizona Florence Correctional Center had one man died from an untreated tooth infection. Now, can you just imagine what it takes to die from an untreated tooth infection? Odds are you've been feeling pain for some time before you die. And usually the inmate will tell you they're feeling a certain amount of pain. This is no exception. According to his brother, this man told medical staff at the detention center he had a toothache back in the beginning of February.
Jeez.
They didn't take his complaint seriously. He was not sent to a dentist. 3 weeks later, he has a retropharyngeal abscess, which is a large, life-threatening collection of pus at the back of his throat.
Oh, my.
He died then because he couldn't breathe. 44-year-old Marie Blaise died last April of a heart attack in a Florida facility when her son said that she made a phone call to him the day she died saying she had chest pains and they wouldn't let her see a doctor.
Wow.
She then dropped dead a couple of hours later. And when she collapsed, the other inmates cried out for help and the guards ignored her. So she died. They might have saved her life had they bothered to pick her up and take her to a hospital. The New Yorker profiled another centre, the Dilley Immigration Processing Centre in Texas. According to inmates at Dilley, the water there is unclean, foul-smelling and causes stomach aches, so the parents tend to buy bottled water for their children because, of course, there's children there as well.
Children.
Of course. The food's a bit of a problem as well. One child found a bug in her food in the facility's cafeteria, leading to other kids not wanting to eat. And then soon after that, the children in the facilities all began to fall sick, including an 18-month-old toddler called Amalia that the article from the New Yorker was focused on. Amalia developed a high fever, went to the facility's clinic. Her parents were told the fever was good because it means she's fighting off a virus. So that's good news. She was given some ibuprofen. After 2 weeks, the fever persisted. Can you imagine if you're the parent for 2 weeks with your daughter getting sicker and sicker? And Amalia started vomiting and having diarrhea. Her parents took her back to the clinic. Well, they took her many times. They waited in line 8 different times without actually getting to see anyone. But 2 weeks later, they finally got to see someone. Her parents gave her a cold bath to try and lower her temperature, and she passed out. At that point in time, Amalia's mum went to the clinic and started yelling, "Are you going to watch my baby die in my arms?" That's when they saw Amalia. They measured her blood oxygen levels. Do you know much about blood oxygen levels?
Nothing, sorry.
They're meant to be over 95. During COVID, my blood oxygen levels fell into the low 80s, and I was right into the serious room of the hospital. Like, they weren't messing around with me when my blood oxygen level was in the 80s.
Whoa.
Amalia's was in the 50s, the low 50s.
Wow.
So you're talking brain damage, serious brain damage at that point in time. So they allowed Amalia to be sent to a local hospital when they got that reading, and it was a major hospital. She was diagnosed there in that hospital with, get this 18-month-old who for the last 2 weeks has been getting sicker and sicker.
An 18-month-old?
18-month-old, yes.
Well, you said child, and I know it's still their child, but that's a little toddler.
Yeah, it's a toddler. Yeah.
That's nuts.
An 18-month-old. Amalia was 18 months. And this is what she had. Wait for it.
Oh, don't say it. COVID,
RSV, bronchitis, pneumonia, and an ear infection. She had all of them at once. That's what she had. After 10 days in hospital, she was sent back to Dilley, prescribed a medicine, unsurprisingly, that was to be administered by a nebulizer. The ICE agents confiscated the nebulizer. So his 18-month-old couldn't have the medicine as prescribed. In January, an adult at Dilley had appendicitis. They collapsed in the hallway, were vomiting from pain, and the officials told them to take a Tylenol and come back in 3 days with appendicitis. Another adult at Dilley was refused a CT scan by centre officials for a lump in her chest. She had a visible lump in her chest, which had caused her severe pain for 3 months. And she's not allowed to have a CT scan. She's still there with the lump in her chest, presumably getting bigger. So that gives you an idea what we're dealing with. I can keep on going, but I think I've probably done enough.
Yeah, I think you made the point.
Yeah, it's not a huge surprise either, because there are 2 bodies that are charged with investigating rights complaints, the Civil Rights Office and the Civil Liberties Office. The start of 2025, they had 147 staff. How many full-time staff do you reckon they had at the end of 2025?
Can you have less than 0?
If there was a way, they would. So the answer you're looking for is 2 full-time staff.
There's more people working on PEP.
That's right. To be fair, they had 30 contractors, but I don't know what those contractors were doing. But, the assistant DHS secretary at the time, my old friend Tricia McLaughlin, said the officers were being shuttered because they were roadblocks to enforcement. Yeah. Anyway, my point is, that's not the main problem. Everything I've just said so far about them not giving a shit, guards being negligent, that beating teenagers, 18-month-olds with the entire medical encyclopedia, all that shit, that's not the main problem.
Mm-hmm. So what is?
The main problem is this. On October the 3rd, 2025, the Trump administration stopped paying third parties for medical care provided to detainees in ICE custody. So what does that mean exactly? It means...
I don't like this. I don't like where this is going.
It means that they don't use third parties for everything. They don't use third parties to give you Tylenol and ibuprofen. Just the serious stuff, the medically necessary care, like dialysis, prenatal care, oncology, chemotherapy, the serious stuff. It also means they don't necessarily don't get that care because ICE can pay for it themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah.
ICE have their own health service. So they can.
I'm sure that the big, beautiful bill cut out a whole lot of room for that fund.
Yeah, I think your cynicism is warranted on this one, Lucky. Yeah, they don't tend to do it, but they theoretically can. ICE theoretically can pay for it themselves without being reimbursed. But they don't tend to want to do that. And many of the horror stories you hear about the health situation in these detention centers is not because of negligence. It's because of this. They just simply don't have third parties. They're not paying for third parties to help them. So there's no one to help them. You just got a guard with ibuprofen. What are they going to do? And I should say, to be fair, ICE aren't exactly wild about this situation either. They've been trying to change it.
Okay, well.
Back in November, ICE described the situation internally as an absolute emergency that needed to be resolved immediately to prevent any further medical complications or loss of life. That's from ICE. Right?
Wow.
Okay, so they were trying to stop it. There were lawsuits about this from illegal immigrants with serious medical complaints. From internally, there are all kinds of lawsuits. Because immigrants were denied insulin. There was one guy. There was one guy who was denied insulin, and it led to a large oozing ulcer on the bottom of his foot. And he couldn't even get wound care for the ulcer, so he was forced to cover it with soiled bandages and bloody shoes.
Oh, gee, that's gross.
Someone with prostate cancer who was bleeding in their urination couldn't get any treatment. Someone with a heart condition was being denied their heart medication or visits to a cardiologist. Someone with a broken elbow was told that they could have no physical therapy or occupational therapy. Someone with kidney stones was told that the detention center doesn't have treatment for that. And it just goes on. It was just a disaster. Now, you might be wondering, why these reimbursements stopped? Does Trump just want to kill them? No. I just don't think so. Maybe I'm being generous. There's no evidence that he wants to kill them. For decades, the Veterans Affairs Financial Centre processed these payments for third-party medical services for ICE. They've been doing it forever. ICE paid them to do so. So the federal government would work through the Veterans Affairs Financial Centre, and ICE would pay them like accountants to process those payments, right?
Okay.
But then in 2023 and 2024, as a cudgel against the Biden administration, a bunch of Republicans falsely claimed the Biden administration was diverting resources from veterans to illegal immigrants.
Oh, okay.
You can see how this would work.
Yeah.
Like, so Tommy Tuberville made a big noise about this, for instance, classic Tommy Tuberville issue, saying Biden was robbing veterans to pay off illegals.
Yeah.
You can see how this works.
Yeah.
Fox News loved this story. The New York Post loved this story. So here's a classic New York Post headline from the time. VA, that's the Veterans Affairs, ripped for helping pay migrant treatment as over 400,000 veterans and their families wait.
Look, I don't doubt that there were 400,000 veterans waiting.
Yeah, but I don't think it was because of that. Yes. So that's pretty misleading. as part of this push, a small conservative group called the Center to Advance Security in America submitted 2 Freedom of Information requests about the controversy. But then, that was under Biden. Then Trump won the election and no one cared anymore. Until September 30th, 2025, when CASA filed a lawsuit against the VA claiming it had never received a substantive response to its Freedom of Information request. 3 days later, the Veterans Affairs ended its agreement with ICE because they didn't want the controversy.
Whoa.
They didn't want to deal with this shit.
That's one way to handle it.
And under Trump, they weren't going to be bothered.
Gee.
They certainly weren't going to take crap from the New York Post. And so and there's no contingency. There's no alternative plan. They just ended it. Bang. So then ICE started seeking out a private company to do the job, to process the payments. And it's just been a very bureaucratic, cumbersome process since then. Like, there's just been very lengthy. They found a company called Accenture, but for whatever reason, they can't seem to get it happening. They keep on putting it off. Every month, they're putting off another month, another month, another month. It was supposed to, it's been like 3 times it's supposed to have started, and it still hasn't started even now. They're now saying during this quarter sometime. We'll see. A VA spokesperson insists that they are processing claims during this transition, despite what I've just told you. The spokesperson said, DHS has signed a new contract to process these claims and is currently onboarding the vendor. Meanwhile, VA is supporting this transition until May to ensure claims are processed appropriately. But an anonymous source at the VA told Popular Information that was bullshit. Quote, no claims are being processed. We've done 0 work to support ICE since they couldn't pay us. And the result, Lockie, from 2018 to 2024, the average number of people who died in ICE custody annually was 8.9. That includes during COVID. 8.9 died per year.
I don't like what you're setting up here, Chaz.
In 2025, 33 people died in ICE custody.
Wow.
Including 12 in the last 2 months of the year after the medical reimbursements stopped.
Wow.
In the first 4 months of 2026, 18 more people have died in ICE custody. So death rate is accelerating. In one detention centre alone, Adelanto ICE Processing Centre, 4 people died between September and March because of insufficient medical care. One of the lawsuits against Adelanto has dozens of witnesses who describe that disease and illness are rampant, mold grows on the walls, food is unsanitary, water is undrinkable, medical care is largely non-existent. Since I stopped medical reimbursements, people have been dying at a rate of 51.7 people annually, more than 5 times the death rate before the payments stopped. And yes, the ICE detainee population has increased. If you're saying, well, they've got more people there. But they've only increased from 40,000 to 60,000 people. Okay, they've increased by 50%. The deaths have increased by 500%. Sometimes the deaths are violent. Almost all of them are medical. One example I read about was a guy who died at that Camp East Montana place I told you about before. He died in December of liver failure. According to the San Fran Chronicle, during the 2 months before his death, he went to the medical unit 9 times complaining of symptoms, including bloody stools and bleeding gums. But he was sent back from visits to the medical unit with allergy, heartburn, and indigestion medications and diagnosed with flu, despite repeatedly testing negative. And then he died. And reminder, 72% of those in detention across America have no criminal record at all, even for non-violent offences. 82% was Camp East Montana, 72% overall.
Yeah.
Only 5% have been convicted of a violent crime. So that is what's going on with detention centres as they exist now. How are they going to double the capacity, you might ask?
No, I didn't ask, and we can end all of this now.
No, we can't. The big, beautiful bill gave ICE $45 billion to build detention centres, and they are using that money. They're buying industrial warehouses across America with the hope of having 8 large detention centres that hold 10,000 detainees each and 16 processing sites that hold 1,500 detainees for a few days at a time. They've been splashing that money around. They spent $894 million on warehouses in January and February alone, which was on average 11 to 13% more than the market prices. At least that's the average. Some are worth way more than that. For instance, they paid $128 million for a $55 million warehouse in Social Circle, Georgia. They paid $68 million for a $7 million warehouse in Oakwood, Georgia. They paid $129 million for a $62 million warehouse in New Jersey. And they paid $70 million for a $46 million warehouse in Surprise, Arizona. Surprise! You go to the detention center. They project it'll cost another $150 million to retrofit that particular detention center and $180 million to run it for 3 years. So you got an idea of the kind of costs we're talking about. We're talking about billions and billions here. But despite their relative generosity to the private owners of warehouses, a lot of these detention centers aren't even slightly welcome in their community areas. Remember I told you that before?
Yes, no, you did foreshadow.
Even in red states. Why? Why don't red states like detention centers? There's a few reasons. Number one, sorry, it looks like you want to take a guess.
I feel like there'd be a ton of reasons. Just generally, I don't want the immigrants staying here.
Yeah, that's probably one of them, but that's not one of the ones I was going to go with.
Okay.
One, the federal government didn't even tell them they were going to be detention centers until after the sale.
No, they call them ballrooms.
And that really pissed off the local communities.
Oh, wow.
They foisted these detention centers on them without even telling them.
Mm.
Two, these people know wherever a mega detention center goes, protesters are going to follow.
Ah.
And these are small communities. They really don't want to deal with that shit. Right? So there's that as well. It's going to make their lives of locals a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important one is three. These are rural areas. These are small towns, which means a massive detention centre places a huge burden on the community because it dwarfs the town.
Sure.
Let's take Social Circle as an example. They've got 5,500 residents, ironically, given they're called Social Circle. Maybe they're literally just a circle. They're Trumpy too. Trump won more than 70% of the vote in the area.
Okay.
But place a 10,000 detainee detention centre in a town with 5,500 residents, and you're tripling the local population.
That's nuts, yeah.
So what happens to the water utilities? What happens to the sewerage systems? What happens to the power? The current wastewater system in Social Circle processes 660,000 gallons a day, and it's at capacity now. This detention centre is going to add another 1 million gallons of wastewater a day. They're going to need a whole new system. Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to install that? Not the detention centre, because here's the thing that you don't hear much. The federal government is exempt from paying local property taxes. So that one warehouse, which generated $166,000 in property taxes per year,
now does
nothing. And it's placing huge demands on the community as well. So it's a drain of money and it gives them nothing. In fact, it gets worse because the federal government was paying so much for these properties, overpaying for these properties. Uh-huh. It actually outbid productive businesses that were going to buy those properties. So it's screwing these communities over two ways. By not just creating a huge nuisance, but also removing something really good. The property in Oakwood, Georgia, raised $771,000 in taxes last year. Now it's a budget black hole. Okay, so the government says this is all bullshit. Detention center is going to create jobs. What are you talking about? In Social Circle, they say it's going to create 9,800 jobs. It'll be worth $1 billion in GDP and it'll increase tax revenue by $221 million.
What's the point in creating 9,000 jobs if 5,000 people live there?
Well, first of all, it's not 9,800 jobs. That's jobs during construction, if that's even true. They always overestimate.
Where are the construction workers going to live?
There is that as well. But they're only there for a short period of time before they piss off. To actually run the place is going to be 2,500 jobs, not 9,800. Their GDP numbers are totally made up. And the income taxes aren't going to the local government. They're going to the federal government. They're income taxes. So that's why these communities hate these detention centres.
Gee.
What can they do about it? As a result of this, a number of communities have taken the federal government to court already Some councils have tried to pass regulations that ban the detention centres. They often don't work. The federal government just comes over the top. But the most effective way to stop them, I've already kind of mentioned. A lot of the towns need new water and wastewater treatment facilities to deal with these detention centres, remember? Mm-hmm. So they can use that to be massive pains in the arse. Social Circle has put a lock on the water meter of the warehouse, and the city manager Eric Taylor said, "The lock is there until ICE indicates how water and sewerage will be served without exceeding our limited infrastructure capacity." The city of Social Circle is not satisfied that an adequate engineering analysis has been conducted. An adequate engineering analysis is going to take some time, Lockie. It's going to take a lot of time. And then when they finally do their paperwork, Social Circle will take their sweet time building a new facility because ICE can't open the detention centre till the new facility's there.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to take years for them to build that new facility. This administration doesn't have years, Lucky. They've got $45 billion to spend now. It'll be easier for them to just go somewhere else. And this is happening a lot. In Oakwood, Georgia, same thing's happening. In Tremont, Pennsylvania, the same thing's happening. In Salt Lake City, Utah, same thing's happening. They're all doing the same thing. They're using the water facilities and wastewater facilities against ICE. The question is...
Congrats.
Yeah. The question is what the Fed's going to do about it. They still do seem to be pressing ahead in some of the bigger city locations like San Antonio and El Paso, because obviously you can't pull the same trick there because they've got massive facilities. Look, they'll get their detention centres eventually, but something tells me they're not going to get nearly as much capacity as they were hoping for. Ironically, that's bad news for the detainees because it means they'll still be in awful, overcrowded conditions because it's not going to stop them from detaining people.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to stop them from detaining people. Anyway, next I want to tell you, I'm looking at time, okay. Look, let's go half hour over time, shall we?
What is time?
I'm going to tell you next about how ramshackle the processes are for the new immigration regime. Back on March 10, Laura Loomer tweeted that she dug up something nefarious.
Oh, a Loomer drop. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Someone's getting loomered. If you recall, Qasem Soleimani was one of the leaders of the IRGC. That's the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps or whatever. It's the military. It's the regime military in Iran.
Sure.
When Trump had him assassinated back in 2020. Qasem Soleimani.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. He was likely a threat to Americans. It was probably a legal hit. But Loomer found a sordid sequel. I'll quote her. "Breaking! I have reported Qasem Soleimani's niece to DHS and the State Department. She's on social media making threats against the Trump administration. Threats. Posting content sympathetic to the Iranian regime and the Ayatollah, celebrating missiles being launched by Iran into Israel and other Middle Eastern countries, and posting other jihadi content while she lives in extreme luxury in Los Angeles. It's worth noting that the woman, whose name I'm only giving to authorities at this time, so she doesn't flee, does not wear a hijab, even though it's required in Iran, even though she lives in LA. Her social media is full of scantily clad photos in all designer outfits, likely paid for with terrorist-tied money from the Iranian regime. She also appears to have undergone massive amounts of plastic surgery to hide her identity, completely transforming her facial features. I'm in touch with Secretary of State Marco Rubio's team at the US State Department and counterterrorism officials at DHS. They told me they're looking into my evidence immediately. I can see what you're bringing up, Lockie.
Yeah, you can see it.
Tell us what you were bringing up.
I just can't stand Laura Loomer pulling someone up for having plastic surgery and looking unrecognizable. That I'm never going to do what you want to your face. No, this is not like body shaming, but don't be a hypocrite like that.
For those who are listening,
here's a photo of Laura Loomer before and after plastic surgery.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
Oh.
I was going to say, for those who are listening, don't look at the video right now where Lockie is showing the photo before and after. Just stay on the audio podcast feed. Apparently, the State Department and DHS were paying attention, because a month later, on April 5, we see this tweet from Marco Rubio. Until recently, Hamadeh Soleimani Afshar and her daughter were green card holders living lavishly in the United States. Afshar is the niece of deceased Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani. She's also an outspoken supporter of the Iranian regime who celebrate attacks on Americans and refer to our country as the Great Satan. This week, I terminated both Afshar and her daughter's legal status, and they are now in ICE custody, pending removal from the United States. The Trump administration will not allow our country to become a home for foreign nationals who support anti-American terrorist regimes. By the way, State Department put out a press release that said Hamadeh Soleimani, Afshar and her daughter are now in the custody of US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as identified by both press reporting and her own social media commentary. Soleimani Afshar is an outspoken supporter of the totalitarian terrorist regime in Iran. So, as identified by press reporting, did you say? There was no press reporting of this. There was literally zero. It was just Laura Loomer. So now Laura Loomer is the press. And Loomer was only too happy to take credit. She noted, over the last few months, I've quietly been documenting all of Hamadeh Soleimani's Afshar's social media activity. I uploaded it all to a secure file and shared it with DHS and Department of State. And now she's been arrested and she'll be deported from our country. And she said, I've refrained from posting all the evidence over the last few months because I didn't want Hamadeh and her daughter to flee from the address she was living at. That I sent to DHS and Secretary Rubio. Immigration officials agreed with my strategy. So she's working with immigration officials here, doing this shit. Are you ready to see the hot evidence that Laura Loomer gathered?
Oh, lay it on me, Chaz.
She gave us the best, the cream of the cream, the best of the best. This is some pretty hot evidence. This is the evidence that got a woman and her mother deported. Brace yourselves. Go for it, Lockie.
Oh, I'm shaking.
We've got fake AI news about US military being captured in Iran.
What the?
We've got some meme about missiles, and we've got one of those AI shorts about how Qasem Soleimani looked throughout the years. That's what we got. Turns out that whole thing about referring to America as the Great Satan, that's what Iran does. They're saying she's a supporter of the Iranian regime who celebrated attacks on Americans and referred to our country as the Great Satan.
So she didn't say it?
No, she didn't say the Great Satan.
Oh, my. Sure, cool. Great.
And as for the bit about she was, what did she originally say?
Scantily clad, lavish life.
Oh, there's certainly plenty of photos of her not wearing much. I mean, if there's any doubt about that. By the way, not that we need any more. You showed those photos just now of those 3 memes.
I did. Yeah.
Get the hell out of America. We don't need more than that. That's case closed. But the New York Post was focusing on the scantily clad bit. They're more interested in that.
Sure.
This was their front page. Busted in the land of Satan. With a busty photo. They quite like that one.
Is that what they're going for?
That's what they're going for.
Okay.
If you look at the article of that, they managed to work in a bikini photo there as well because it's the New York Post. So
are they linked to news.com?
Yeah. They're
okay,
Murdoch.
okay.
It's Murdoch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So yeah,
it's nice to see that they're
upholding standards,
editorially consistent across the pond.
Yeah. So they're right about her not wearing hijab. I mean, that is certainly true.
I can't wait for them to deport Bianca Censori on the same charges.
Now, to be clear, there is a legal provision that will allow this to happen. Section 1227A4C reads, an alien whose presence or activities in the United States the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences of the United States is deportable. So if they think you could have foreign policy consequences, they can deport you. Even if it's just things you say or believe. That's the provision they use to deport Mahmoud Khalil. Remember the guy from Columbia, the student, like a 30-year-old student?
Yeah, who...
They tried to deport beginning of last year.
Was this the one who was co-writer of a paper?
Yes. Yes, that's the one, yes. That provision there. The problem is if they've done nothing and you're only trying to deport them for what they say or believe, that obviously cracks down free speech, which is a particular problem for a green card holder because they're almost like a citizen and she was a green card holder. If she challenges that in court, I think she has a pretty good chance of facing the deportation down. I hope she does because there's one more thing about her that we should note. She's not actually Soleimani's niece.
Are you kidding?
Not even close.
I'd been wondering. I was like, niece, that's kind of separated? She's not even the niece.
No, that's the reason she looks so different. She hasn't had lots of plastic surgery. She's just a different person.
Whoa.
Dropsite
Yeah, go on.
reviewed Iranian birth records, identification papers, a family will, and other personal documents, and found no connection whatsoever between these women they were deporting, this woman and her mum, and the assassinated Soleimani or his extended family.
Huh.
That's not a surprise, because as soon as they were arrested, Soleimani's actual daughter in Iran, Zainab Soleimani, said in the Iranian media, the individuals arrested in the United States have no connection whatsoever to our family. Another of the daughters said at the time, to this day, no member of the Soleimani family nor any relative of General Soleimani has resided in the United States. But they didn't care. They just kept them in deportation proceedings. But it gets better. The mum was actually a protester back in Iran.
Wow.
She went to jail
So she
for protesting the regime.
very much did not call America the Great Satan.
Very much.
Wow.
The reason they were in America was because they were fleeing this social conservatism of Iran. The daughter took part in a dance performance on vacation. That's why she's getting around in not many clothes, because she's a dancer. And she took part in a dance performance in Turkey at the age of 12. The video went viral and the girl was persecuted because she was too scantily clad. So ironically, Laura Loomer is continuing on what the Iranians started back in the day, persecuting her because of how she dresses.
Wow.
She was expelled from her public school because of that video. Then she went to a private school where she was then expelled again. And some of her family members who had connections to the Iranian government, although not Soleimani, beat and threatened the mother.
Wow.
So they travelled to America to claim asylum from Iran. These are exactly the kinds of people that Trump says he's fighting for in Iran. These are exactly the kinds of people. And it's no surprise that she was getting around in the bikini and that she wasn't wearing a hijab. She's not into hijabs. Right?
Wow.
That's not her bag. So, by the way, as for living lavishly,
Yeah, that did catch my ear too.
her friends say they've been behind on their mortgage payments and they need help from their friends to pay for legal support when they're in ICE detention because they don't have much money.
Mm-hmm.
The jewelry in their handbags that were in the photos on her Insta, that Laura Loomer was going, oh, look, they're living lavishly.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're sitting down. Lockie, maybe you should lie down because you really, really need to prepare yourself for this. The Insta photos weren't necessarily 100% based on reality.
Oh my God.
It's possible. In fact, it actually happened. They had costume jewelry on.
No.
And fake handbags. I know.
Nobody's ever done that.
So, ironically, this woman could not be more American. She is just... This is the American dream to just go on Instagram and boast about how rich you are when you've got nothing.
Is this some person Laura Loomer just has it out for? Is there some reason why Loomer's
she just saw the
targeted this
She
person?
saw the name Soleimani.
And just went for
Just
it?
assumed it.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
she's assumed
right.
because she's got no standards. Now they've got more problems though, the mother and her daughter, because both of them are in the South Texas ICE processing center in San Antonio. They don't care whether they're the real Soleimanis or not. The mum lives with autoimmune hemolytic anemia, which requires regular treatment and blood transfusions. And if you've been awake for the last hour, you know where this is going. But I'll quote one of their friends. The only thing that they can do is a blood transfusion with a match because she has a severe anemia. And Serena, the daughter that is, might be a match. But they're like, we don't even have the equipment here to do this for you. And that was 2 weeks ago. And now this week they're like, yeah, we still don't have the equipment. They just put her on antibiotics. That's not going to save her life.
Wow.
So the mum has dangerously low hemoglobin levels. Because there's third-party processing things, she's never going to get help for it. She actually recently passed out and was left unconscious on the floor of the detention center for 10 minutes because of her low hemoglobin levels. That's not going to make them let her go, though. No way.
No.
Doesn't matter that they mistook her identity and that both women have a legitimate claim for asylum, and they're exactly the kind of people Trump's trying to help, and they have green cards, which means they're allowed to be in America.
That's nuts.
Doesn't matter. None of that matters anymore. All of that is outweighed by the fact that Laura Loomer made some shit up about them, which they didn't bother checking. That's what the system is like. By the way, when told that she got the wrong people, Laura Loomer didn't give a stuff. She said it doesn't matter. Quote,
that surprises me about as much as the Instagram thing.
I want all Islamic immigrants deported. I don't support any of their asylum claims, she said. So that's what we're dealing with. That's their press.
Wow. What a vile thing to say.
Yeah. And there's another aspect of this story, how absolutely anything goes when it comes to increasing ICE's power. With all that money, it's a perfect storm for creepy shit. So let me tell you about that right now. I've got 20 more minutes with my extra half an hour, so let's keep on going.
I'll just give it to myself.
Liz McClellan. She was photographing federal agents participating in immigration crackdown in Maine about a month ago.
Okay.
I mean, just once. She was going to have a way to try to find them and photograph them, which, need I remind you, is completely illegal. First Amendment protected. Free press, free speech. But ICE disagreed. So a few of them turned up to her house and said to her, "This is a warning. We know you live right here." That's pretty shitty behaviour. But also, how did they know where she lived?
That sounds a bit like this database that I remember you planted the idea in. Is that where we're going? I'm not looking at your notes.
That's where we're going.
Oh no.
They've got the trove, but this is actually to be fair, it's not that database. It's another database.
Oh, great, cool. Don't worry. Oh, I'm sorry for being mixed up.
There are multiple databases. They've got a trove of data for 300 million people that they can use to track down illegal immigrants. But obviously, it doesn't stop there.
300 million.
300 million.
Who are the 50 million Americans that they just aren't letting on this list?
Well, they're assembling it as time goes on.
Wow.
Don't worry, those 50 million will find their way onto this list.
They're probably on
soon.
the other database.
Yes. As of 2022, ICE had scanned the driver's license photos of 1 in 3 adults. They've got the driver's license data of 3 and 4 adults. They can track the movements of drivers in cities where 3 and 4 adults live, and they can locate 3 and 4 adults through their utility records. Now, you might be wondering where this information comes from. It turns out they spent $2.8 billion between 2008 and 2021 buying data from private companies and state and local bureaucracies. So this is not a Trump thing. This is an ICE thing.
2008, yeah, wow.
Yeah. And see, the Fourth Amendment stops them surveilling people, but it doesn't stop them buying the data from other people who are surveilling people. And those other people, for their private company, they're not bound by the Fourth Amendment. So they can do whatever the hell they want. So this is a way of working around the Fourth Amendment.
Okay.
They also have hired Palantir for tracking near real-time visibility. We're going to come back to that. They've also got a phone app called Elite, which stands for Enhanced Leads Identification and Targeting for Enforcement, that pulls info from a number of government databases to target people on a map. They also have an app called Mobile Fortify, which all they do is take a photo of someone and it cross-references Customs Traveller Verification Service and also all of Customs databases, and they are extensive, to see if they have anything on that person. It pulls up data related to the individuals, their vehicles, their flights they've been on, because this is Customs. They know all the flights you've been on, their addresses, their phone numbers, and any firearms that they might have. The same app also takes contactless fingerprint checks.
What?
I know. And then it stores all that data and it keeps it for 15 years, just in case. So these databases just keep on growing. That's where the other 50 million people are going to come into it. And they can also use those apps to identify anyone who gets in their way, like protesters. And it turns out they do. Protesters have lost TSA pre-check privileges. That's like the fast lane at the airport. As a result of being identified. And that sounds pretty mild. It is pretty mild. Who gives a shit? But it does mean...
In American airport lines?
That's true. But I don't
yes.
I don't care. What I do care, though, is it means they've begun to identify protesters and start retaliating against them, against the law and the Constitution. And now they've also got another app called Penlink, which allows agents to geofence a specific area and identify all cell phones within its range, thus giving ICE the ability to track the movements and locations of the phones they're looking for and their owners over time. So I can't see them abusing that power. Of course, they use warrants for none of this, because this is all commercial databases that they're accessing. So it's kind of a loophole for the Fourth Amendment. But it gets better. DHS's Science and Technology Directorate have been developing smart glasses that use all those apps I just said and more in real time.
No way.
Yeah, this is like Matrix shit.
That's insane.
Yeah. So starting from February next year, they're due to start rolling out these bloody glasses. You're going to hear a lot about these glasses next year. There's a bit of a sneak preview on the Pep 2027. These glasses combine facial recognition software with these apps. So they don't even need to take a photo. They just look at someone and they'll get heads-up displays of people who pop up in the files. Wow. And they can store information about these people, right? So, wait for it. They also, these smart glasses, have the ability to detect iris patterns.
No way.
And walking gait as well. So they're going to be able to start tracking people from miles away from the way they walk, and they're going to start getting some serious biometric. Because what they're going to do is they're going to start storing those iris patterns.
Yeah.
Like even without asking for them, they'll start storing these iris patterns. And God knows where they go from there. Like this is really Gattaca shit now. And we all know how this is going to get used. It's going to get used against protesters. It'll get used against undesirables. And it's going to be super creepy. So that's something to look forward to as well. And if you want to know how much you can trust these guys, ICE have spent the last year trying to track down critics on Reddit and social media. There's one example in the news I was reading about, a guy from Reddit called Tired Thumb. Luckily for Tired Thumb, Reddit notified him that ICE had sent them a summons.
Wow.
They didn't have to do that, so that's nice. And that summons was requesting his name, address, phone number, length of service, and IP addresses. They said it was a matter to do with customs enforcement. Sure. Seems unlikely, given he'd never left America, wasn't engaged in international commerce, and had no business concerns outside America. But anyway, he decided to take him to court because he wasn't anonymously, because he didn't like this. ICE claimed they had general authority to demand records relevant to the enforcement of any laws and regulations administered by ICE or CBP at all. What does that mean? Records relevant to the enforcement of any laws and regulations.
What does that mean? Does it mean anything?
I don't think it does. I think it just means they can just do whatever they like. It turned out what this was all about was Tired Thumb had written about Jonathan Ross, the guy who shot Renee Good in Minnesota. Oh. He'd written, Ross had lived in Chaska, Minnesota, grew up in Indiana, and served in the Indiana National Guard. Now, that info was circulating widely in public anyway at the time. But he also, we should be fair.
To be fair.
He also responded to a Reddit user seeking anti-ICE slogans with, urine speaks louder than words. And he also had written that TSA sucks and we all know it. There we go. That's what they had on him, Lockie. That spurned a year-long court case to get his details. They did eventually drop the summons, but DHS says that they're not trying to target critical speech. They're just trying to identify Tired Thumb as part of an investigation into threats and doxing of ICE law enforcement officers. Remember, he didn't say anything that wasn't public already. They just want to make examples of people, obviously.
Wow.
So just wait till they can start identifying protesters who abuse them live with their smart glasses. Just wait for that. All right, now
that's real. Yeah, as you said, that's Matrix shit.
I got 4 more sections. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just pick one more.
Okay.
That will do for today. I'll save the rest for the next lot.
Sure.
When the supervisor is next generous. Supervisor, there's a lot of immigration shit. Okay. I know this is my personal obsession, and so I never let go. I just keep on storing it. But just someone's got to talk about this because none of this stuff gets talked about. You know? All right, I'm going to tell you about an interesting legal development, which is topical. This is this week. Now, we've spoken to you before on both PEP and Planet America about Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. She's from Minneapolis. She's a local DA trying to charge some of the dodgy ICE officers in state courts, knowing they're never going to be disciplined by Trump's federal DOJ. She's been investigating 18 potential incidents, including the shootings of Renee Good and Matthew Preddy. Now, we've now seen 2 indictments. The second one was this week. I'll tell you about them. The first indictment I'm less interested in, but I'll just tell you about it quickly. In Minneapolis, an ICE agent, Gregory Donald Morgan Jr., was charged with assault by Mary Moriarty for pointing his gun at 2 people in a car while he was trying to pass them in an unmarked car on a highway. He originally told investigators he feared for his safety and the safety of others after the civilian vehicle cut him off. Their side of the story, the people in the car, is that they were in the right lane of the highway and they saw an unmarked black SUV approaching at high speed on the highway's shoulder.
Wow.
They had no idea the car was law enforcement, they say, because it had no markings, no lights, no sirens. The driver of the car tried to cut them off. The driver of the car here tried to cut the SUV off a little bit by edging their car onto the shoulder. So they all agree on that. The SUV then slowed down. They then return to the traffic lane. The SUV pulls up alongside their car, which is going very slow because there's no traffic. And Morgan, who was wearing a black T-shirt, no uniform, rolls down his window, pulls out his handgun and points at their head.
Wow. Yelling
something that they couldn't hear. He says it was, "Police, stop." Didn't need to say stop. They're in traffic. They called 911. They pull out their phone to film him, and he drives off. And they call 911 because they have no idea what he's doing. They told the state police there's a crazy person driving down the road aiming guns at people. Also, it turns out this guy wasn't on some urgent call. He was just knocking off work and heading back to base.
Wow.
That's what he said. The state investigators not only interviewed both people, but they also had footage from the highway cameras and the victim's mobile phone, and they charged him. So I reckon they probably have the goods on the guy. That's the first indictment. Not interested in that one. I'm interested in the second one in a big way. Let's start with the official story, shall we? That's always ominous. On January 14, Christian Castro, the now indicted ICE agent, and another ICE agent say they pulled over a guy called Jose Sosa Celis. They said he was part of a targeted operation. So they're looking for him in particular. They're targeting him. They also said they ran the license plate of his car and there was a match. Checks out so far. That's pretty cool. No problems. Didn't need glasses. A little strange though. Because why are you running a license plate check for the car of a guy who you are already intentionally tracking? You know it's him. Why are you running his license plate check? Wait, just in case he stole the car, I guess? I don't know. What are you doing? It seems like a weird thing to do. But they also said they identified him by sight in the car. So I understand the license plate check. But anyway, let's just leave that for now. That's just a weird loose thread. Then when they pulled him over, they confirmed, yeah, that's our guy. But then he fled in his car. And he led them on a chase before crashing into a parked car in suburbia and running away. They chased him on foot to a house where he and 2 other Venezuelan men ambushed them and began attacking the ICE officers with the handles of brooms and shovels. Those 3 men beat the agents for more than 3 minutes, leaving one officer fighting for his life. The DHS statement then says, fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by 3 individuals, the officer fired a defensive shot. Defensive is in bold. A defensive shot to defend his life. Sosa Celis was hit in the leg. All 3 subjects ran back into the apartment and barricaded themselves inside. Other officers arrived on the scene. They forced the men out with tear gas. They arrested them. That's the official line. They arrested 3 guys. There you go. Now, if you don't believe me, if you think I'm sounding a little sarcastic and you don't believe that's a legit story, let me introduce you to someone you can trust And that's Christy Noah.
Last night, what we saw was 3 individuals weaponize shovels and brooms and attack an ICE officer that had to defend himself.
Well, that woman seems very trustworthy indeed. So they ended up charging the men with Sousa Salas and one of the other men. They charged 2 of the men. The third one they charged, but then they dropped the charges and sent him off to a detention centre. But they charged Sousa Salas and one of the other men with assaulting a federal law enforcement officer who was performing their official duties. Okay. This is how the DHS statement concludes. This attack on another brave member of law enforcement took place while Minnesota's top leaders, Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, continue to refuse cooperation with federal efforts to arrest and remove violent criminal illegal aliens from their communities. The hateful rhetoric and resistance against men and women who are simply trying to do their jobs must end. Federal law enforcement officers are facing a more than 1,300% increase in assaults against them as they put their lives on the line to arrest criminals and lawbreakers. All 3 of the illegal aliens involved in this violent attack on law enforcement were let into our country by the Biden administration.
Wow, that's DHS bingo there.
It really is. That's why I read it out. So importantly, it's the rhetoric of Waltz and Frey leading to these attempted murders. These poor ICE agents have to fend off with their lives. Okay, should we have the real story?
Yeah, hit me.
Should say by the way.
Do what the illegal immigrants I suspect didn't and hit me.
Hey, very good. I should say all that info, by the way, is still up on the DHS website. It's still their official line, even though the government has erased the arrest and sentencing announcements of all the J6s. They're gone, but this is still there. Yeah, let's get the real story. There are a few holes in their story, a little like Sousa Salas's leg. There's a few holes in that. Now we should say though, I do get dark. Both the men were illegal immigrants from Venezuela. That is true. They were. Okay, they both received temporary protection status under Biden, so they were legally in America. But then the Trump administration got rid of that and they stayed in America, so then they became illegal. Okay? So they were illegal. I mean, you might say it's scummy that he took away the temporary protection status, but he did. Legally, they're not meant to be there. Okay? That's a fact. Now, for what really happened. Around 6 p.m. that night, Castro and another ICE officer were just running random license plates in the street.
Wow.
They're just going around just running license plates on cars, random cars, until they got a hit. Right?
Wow.
Running through one of the many databases they have access to. Needless to say, you're not meant to do that. You're meant to have a reason to be running license plates. But anyway, one of the plates they ran was registered to an undocumented immigrant named Joffrey Barrera. So they pulled that car over. That's the first lie. It wasn't a target operation. It's just a random license plate which they pulled over. The second lie, Barrera? You didn't mention Joffrey Barrera before?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the guy they ended up shooting. It's a different guy. In fact, it wasn't even Joffrey Barrera. It was a third guy, a guy called Alfredo Alyorna, who was driving the car. He was out doing food deliveries. He wasn't committing crimes. He was doing food deliveries. He said he'd recently bought the car on Facebook Marketplace, which is interesting because they'd specifically said they identified him visually and then confirmed it with a license plate check. Now, that's clearly a lie because this guy was not the person they claimed he was.
Yeah.
He wasn't Sousa Salas, who was the guy they ended up shooting, they said was in the car. He wasn't even the guy who had the license plate. He wasn't Barrera. And that third guy, Alyorna. And Barrera was 9 years older, 5 inches shorter, and 25 kilos lighter than Alyorna. So I doubt very much they saw Alyorna and said, that's Barrera. They're just making shit up. So anyways, they said they'd recognized him in the car as the owner of the car. Obvious bullshit. Anyway, they didn't care about any of that. They sounded to Alfredo like they were... Alyorna. Yeah, Alfredo, yeah, Alyorna. They sounded to him like they were about to arrest him, and he was an illegal immigrant. So he had no criminal record, of course, but that doesn't stop anyone doing anything. He knew he was about to go, so he fled. He drove off in his car. This bit is true in their statement. They did chase him in the car, and he did crash. That's true. And he did run towards a house. That's also true. But from then, Lockie, let's go to the videotape.
2.5 minutes in, we see a sedan crash into a snowbank, followed by police lights. A man is standing on a nearby sidewalk with a snow shovel. The man in the car, identified as Alfredo Alhorna, runs toward the White House on the left side of the screen. Julio Sosa Solis, the man on the sidewalk, appears to drop the shovel as a federal immigration agent chases Alhorna. This is where accounts of what happened differ. DHS has previously said that the agent was beat with weapons, including that snow shovel, but the video shows a brief struggle between the three before the two men run towards the home. You can see the agent appear to fire his weapon towards the entryway of the home. DHS previously said that the agent fired his gun in self-defense as he was ambushed.
That's a little bit different to their story.
A little.
And that's video. Finally, that bullet that the ICE agent fired, supposedly to defend himself, passed through the door first.
Also, we're playing Oscar Pistorius.
Yes. Through Solis Solis's, that's a good call, through Solis Solis's leg and lodged itself in the wall of a child's bedroom. So, to be clear, Solis Solis was not the subject of a targeted operation. He wasn't driving the car. He wasn't doing anything other than shoveling snow outside his house. He saw his buddy running towards the house, and he threw the broom down before the officer arrived. The officer then tackled them. Wow. They had a little struggle before they got away. DHS said when they got to the house, Sosa Solis, Alhorna, and a third man, Gabriel Ledesma, ambushed them and then severely beat them with shovels and broom handles. They called the beating an attempted murder. Castro said he felt the broom handle hit his face, that he felt pain as he was being struck with the broomstick, and that before firing he was exhausted, alone on the ground, and in fear of his safety.
Give the man an Oscar.
Yes, the video clearly shows there wasn't two officers, there was only one, it was him. There wasn't a third man. He was in the house the whole time. The struggle lasts for exactly 9 seconds, not over 3 minutes as claimed. There's no beating happening with brooms and shovels. No one's fearing for their lives except for the two immigrants when the ICE agent starts shooting at them as they run into the house. That third man, by the way, who wasn't even part of the incident, he was still defamed by DHS. They still put out his photo and his name, saying that he was part of this attempted murder. Have a look. This is a Fox News graphic right here. Don't those three look scary?
Ooh.
So that was what was going around at the time. And that third man was then arrested and sent to a deportation facility in Texas. He was eventually released, though, which is nice. Also, just in case the video isn't enough, Minneapolis has a shot spotter system which detects gunshots.
Oh, yeah.
And the time signature of the shot spotter can be synced up to the time signature on that council video.
Wow.
And so we know for a fact that the bullet was fired. It was detected being fired exactly 5 seconds after the men had begun running away from the ICE agent.
Wow.
So it was 5 seconds after there was any contact between them and the ICE agent. It's not a lot of self-defense going on here. Another thing, the FBI affidavit said that the law enforcement on the scene were unable to locate any shell casing or bullet impact at the house. Even though there was a bullet hole in the door.
Yeah.
They didn't look very hard, I don't think. When Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension came afterwards to have a look themselves, they found a 9mm caliber shell casing just outside the entrance of the house, which was handy for when this guy gets arrested, because the feds aren't bothering doing any investigating. It has to come down to Minnesota, and the feds don't cooperate. The feds don't help them at all. So the only evidence they can use is the evidence they gather themselves. So I'm glad the feds missed that bullet casing. One more flashing red sign that dodginess was afoot. As if you need one more.
Yeah.
Castro, who was apparently close to death, according to him, didn't head to one of the 2 nearest trauma centre hospitals within 5 kilometres of the incident. No. He travelled by private car. He drove himself to the Cambridge Medical Centre, which is a small regional combined clinic and hospital, about a quarter of the size of the trauma centre hospitals, which was 70 kilometres away.
Wow.
Why would you do that, do you think? Their medical records, by the way, showed that his only injury was an abrasion at the base of his thumb.
Must have been a pretty scary abrasion.
No, this guy's clearly Wolverine. He just recovers really quickly. That's why he needed to drive for 70 kilometres to give himself time. Yeah. Now, this officer lied not just to the media, but also to the FBI, also to his own fellow ICE agents, to the hospital. He lied to everyone. But some of them, the FBI agent in particular, partly covered for him. Like, they exposed some of the lies in their official report, but some of them they let go. Now, Todd Lyons did say he was investigating. At one point in time, he's the acting head of ICE. He's gone now. At the time, he said he was investigating a false report. So that sounded good. They've never done anything. They just let it go. That was 3 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Nothing happened. So, in fact, 4 months ago. No hint of charges. He was placed on administrative leave, Castro, but that was it. I don't think he's there anymore. So Hennepin County attorney, when I say not there, I mean on administrative leave. He's back to work.
Yes.
So Hennepin County attorney Mary Marathi stepped in, charged him herself with 4 counts of second-degree assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. And the feds didn't incorporate her in any way, shape or form. She only found the identity of the ICE officer through the Cambridge Medical Centre, through the records.
Wow.
Otherwise, she wouldn't have even known who the officer was.
Wow.
Because they wouldn't even tell her the name of the officer. That hasn't been public until now. That's how much the feds just weren't helping. I should also say, if you want a sense of how far some media outlets have gone on this shit, even after the CCTV footage came out and became public, and the New York Times ran a big piece on that, everyone could see at that point the ICE agent had been completely made up his story. The Federalist, in April, was running with this headline about the New York Times. New York Times finds more illegal aliens it thinks should be allowed to break the law. That's what they're saying about a case where the ICE agent officer clearly is lying.
Yeah. Wow.
They're awful people. Now, to the tough part. This is J.D. Vance talking about this. Well, no, he's not talking this case. He's talking about one of the shootings before, either the Jonathan Ross or the Alex Pretty shooting he's talking about. But it's the same principles, is what he had to say.
So the head of Minnesota's investigations agency says that the U.S. Attorney's Office has essentially cut off the state investigations agency's access to the investigation. What is the precedent for that, and why shouldn't the Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation?
First of all, I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many people who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge. So what I'd like Minnesota to focus on is the real issue that they're encouraging people. Minneapolis officials are encouraging people to commit violence against ICE officials. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop.
Is he right? Well, look, he's not right about encouraging violence against ICE officials. That's bullshit. But about the illegal element of it, about this all being a federal issue and the feds having immunity from state prosecutions. Is he right about that? Partly he is. Castro could try to have this case removed to federal court. I'm sure he is going to try. And there have been many state prosecutions of federal officials in the past that have been blocked by the courts as unjustified interference with US law enforcement. So Vance is right about that. But not all of them have. It's true that federal agents do have broad immunity from prosecution in state court for on-duty conduct. But to get that immunity, Castro has to show that, one, he was doing something he was authorized to do by the United States law, and 2, he did no more than what was necessary and proper. Do you think he can show that? I don't know. If the trial does go ahead, they're going to be applying Minnesota law in the federal courts when trying him. So it's still Minnesota law. It's just a question of whether they're going to go ahead with the case. And that all applies for the first guy too, the first indictment, the waving the gun around guy. Same deal for him. Now, in the case of Castro, he might well succeed in saying when he shot through the door, he was in the course of his official duty. I mean, he's trying to stop illegal immigrants who are running away from him. He shouldn't be shooting at people running away from him. But I've seen worse things than that called official duty before. That's just how the law works, sadly. So at least in America. So I reckon there's a pretty good chance he's going to get away with that.
Wow.
But I can't see how that charge of a false report isn't sticking. That's not his duty. His duty is not to lie when writing a report. It's not going to be a huge sentence. It's just a misdemeanor. But it's not nothing. And importantly, what that would do is that would tell ICE agents, hey guys, you're not invincible. You think you are, but you're not. So watch out. So even if all they get out of this is a misdemeanor, hopefully a tiny amount of jail time, but at least a massive fine, getting sacked, all that kind of shit. If that's all they get, that's still something. That's not something to be cynical about, because that's what we need more than anything. ICE to realise they can't just to get away with anything because Trump's in charge. And especially, I should note, even if it's in federal court, these are state charges. What that means is state law applies, which means no pardons from Trump.
Whoa.
If this guy's guilty of anything, he's guilty. Sorry, buddy.
Huh.
So that's going to be really important as well. So that is actually a bit of a little ray of light at the end, that some of this shit can get remedied just a little bit by the courts if this plays out. I'm going to be watching this. I'm sure everyone's going to be watching this case quite carefully over the next probably 18 months. It's going to take a while. But this is an important one for the future, not just under this administration, but future administrations too.
Wow.
So much more to say. That will do for now, Lucky. Got anything else to add?
Look, it was a bit of a depressing ride, but I would love to say that I'm glad that you were there to explain it for me. Ladies.
You know, in that case, ladies didn't make you more creepy, because it sounded pretty creepy, you thanking me for that. so it's just equally creepy. Thanks, Lucky. I'll see you guys in, 2 days' time for the next Pep.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe, depending on how we go, I might have some extra time for some more ice stuff at the end. Fingers crossed. Till then, stay peppy.